This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carinante.
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God! Welcome to a Thursday edition of the Yanks Go Yard podcast, the only podcast that gets you Bronx bombed on a weekday afternoon. How much longer is it going to get you Bronx bombed on a weekday afternoon? When does the season end? God, it's going to be so nice planning to not map my October around playoff games. That's going to be wonderful. The New York Yankees are the worst team in baseball. Not only is their season over, but they find ways to build you back up before tearing you down again and ending it for real, which is crazy unhelpful. Just lose a fart noise. Just lose a fart noise game. Lose 9-2 like you did yesterday to effectively end the season and lose the series to Chicago White Sox, the final straw of the campaign. Just lose it 9-2. Don't go down 4-0. Make it 5-2. Load the bases with nobody out in the seventh inning. Make people who turn the game off turn it back on, only to receive a strikeout looking and a double play from the 8-9 hitters. Then an Anthony Volpe pinch hitting appearance to lead off the next inning for the first baseman with nobody on base. What are you doing, Nathaniel Hackett? Luis Severino does not get another start for the rest of this year. He can't. Luis Severino technically did not get a start yesterday. And shout out to the commenter on the YouTube channel. This video is called "He Cannot Make Another Start." The commenter is like, well, actually, he didn't make a start yesterday. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, pitching bulk innings beginning in the second inning with no backup plan, that's pretty much the same thing as giving him a start. And if it's not a start, well, then he can't do that again either. We'll obviously talk about the sad story of Sevy. The idea that firing Brian Cashman for creating this mess is not even on the table, according to Bob Clappish, who we believe, because he makes us angry in this particular instance. Everson Pereira coming up, maybe. Kind of seems like it. Kind of seems like it's going to happen too late. And, man, the Phillies just continue to find vibes that the Yankees cannot seem to uncover. The Phillies and Dave Dombrowski are vibe-sniffing dogs, and the New York Yankees are getting stopped at airport security with a criminally low amount of vibes. I hate this team. I hate this team so much. You can find us hating this team on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Drop us a 5-star review and a mailbag question. Find us live on YouTube Mondays and Thursdays, 2 o'clock Eastern. Thanks for coming, everyone in the comments. Yeah, I am tired of this team not mattering at all. And oh boy, do they ever not matter at all. Thomas Carinante, you a special offer in case our watchers, listeners, viewers are still watching sports.
Yeah, this is for the listeners. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's not for Yankees fans because you simply can't be a fan right now. This team sucks.
Well, it's a vent session. Like I said this to you, and I said it. I was like, I better not get messages complaining about this team in August and September. Like, I'm trying to go to the beach. This is not a Major League Baseball team. It's an under 500 team. I don't really care if they bring Nick Ramirez into a 2-run game on September 4th. I just I don't want to, so I won't.
I won't. But we have an unbeatable offer for you if that's what you're looking for. It's from Caesars Sportsbook, everybody. New customers can get their first bet insured up to $1,250 by using our code YGYFULL, F-U-L-L, at sign up. Not only will your first bet be fully insured, but you'll also have be directly supporting the podcast. Great fun. We're here for the bad times. We're here for the good times. We're not sugarcoating anything. So it's fun to be with us. Keep that up. Isn't that amazing? So if you haven't already joined the Caesars Sportsbook community, now is the perfect time to make your move. Just remember the code YGYFULL. You got to punch that in during sign up, and you got to place that first bet. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 and older and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode descriptions for full terms of the offer. What are the full terms of my offer rescinding my fandom and just becoming Rob Lowe baseball fan? That's what I want. I just want to wear
I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here anymore.
I just want to wear the MLB hat. I want to go to different games, and I want to enjoy myself. Because, man, I watched all of those games, or I started watching all of those games and then decided at some point that I was turning it off. Like, when they started scoring runs the other night, I was like, great, they finally shut it down. I don't need to watch them potentially blowing this. first night after Cease got into all that trouble on Monday and they didn't score any runs. You just knew they weren't scoring any runs, which they didn't. And then last night, probably the biggest offense of all. I don't know what the plan was. Let's talk about the plan, the big plan that they had for Luis Severino, because before the game, Aaron Boone said Luis Severino was not starting because the Yankees needed the best chance possible to win. Every game matters at this point. How can it not? The first time he says something where it's like, wow, the urgency is here. This team needs to start buckling down, and here they're doing it. They're not going to start Luis Severino. But the plan was to bring him in the second inning. Ian Hamilton threw 10 pitches as the, quote, opener. He hadn't pitched since August 5th, and you're not going to throw him for a second inning just to see what you got, to see if you could buy yourself some more time?
The whole point of the opener thing is to get Severino out of the heart of the order. Hamilton goes uno, dos, adios to start this game. Tim Anderson swinging at a changeup, a Slambio away. 10 pitches, 3 outs. And you're like, all right, that worked. He was disgusting. Can't wait to see him against 4, 5, 6. Then bring in Sevy for 7, 8, 9. And if he's bad, hit the button and get him out of there. Nope. There's Severino for the heart of the order. The hardest hit double you've ever seen from Yoel Moncada. Moves to third on a grounder. Rip single by Yasmani Grandal, who before this series, and we'll get into the White Sox bullshit, was accused of trying to leave the team before the All-Star break during a game. And Tim Anderson said, I'll pay for your flight. And Yasmani Grandal got punched or punched Tim Anderson. Like, that's the guy. He slapped him. I mean, that's the guy who was just in such a good headspace that he was like, oh, Severino hanger. Great. Can't wait to deposit this into the outfield grass. And do not get it twisted. Luis Severino might be tipping his pitches. He might have, rotation of his hips problems. He might have wind-up issues, but he's also throwing 95-mile-an-hour fastballs in the opposite corner of the plate from where he intends it. He is hanging cement mixers as cement-filled as you have ever seen them. The pitch that he gave up, the 2-run shot to Oscar Colas on yesterday, was as if a softball pitcher or a 12-year-old was trying to. You remember when you were little and you threw a curveball and you at first you were like, I think I got it, because you were just throwing it slow so that it naturally went down after being up. You're like, I figured it out. And your dad's like, how are you gripping that? And you're like, the same way as always. I'm just going and throwing it up and down. That's what Severino gave to Oscar Colas. He hit a 2-run home run. It's extremely sad. And I'm not going to go here. It's people yesterday on Twitter, because Twitter's toxic. X is toxic. We're like, oh, do you feel bad for other people at other jobs who are bad at their job? And the answer is kinda. I feel bad whenever I encounter a stupid person, but I definitely feel bad that Luis Severino used to be one of the top 10 most talented pitchers in baseball and now has next to no talent. You're not gonna, if you tell me I'm waiting for the phantom injury to become a real injury.
Yeah,
he was throwing 100 against San Diego like 2 months ago. Then his next start in LA was the worst start I'd seen in my life. And then the Homer Simpson, Bart Simpson meme, worst start you ever seen in your life so far. And then I saw like 10 worst starts this summer, but he went from 100 to 95, 96 in one start. Yeah. He one hit the Padres and then couldn't get an out. His ERA is over 8. He subtracted 2 wins above replacement, according to B-War from the New York Yankees. 2 wins. That's a crazy. Pitcher has taken away 2 wins from the Yankees this year, and that's conservative because in reality, he's taken away a win from the team almost every time he toes the rubber. He's got to go. It's crazy that starting him in the second inning yesterday didn't fix all of his problems, but the pitches are slower. The pitches are without hop. The location is terrible. I think he's injured. And I got into a little minor tiff with somebody yesterday who was like, he's probably trying to pitch through an injury to make sure that he's able to show off his best self ahead of free agency. This is helping? An injury rehab gives you an excuse. This is just showing your ass to the American public and whoever's going to spend money on free agents this offseason. How is this helping?
It's not. And my whole thing here is the logic with utilizing him, because the stats show he's bad in general. That's what's happened. It's sad. We've talked about it the last few episodes. His post-game commentary has been depressing. You feel for the guy. There's no one out there like that, wants his head on a pike, because usually Yankee fans are doing that type of thing where they can't stand a certain player and they go on a crusade to make sure that they're run out of town. It's mostly it's a lot like the Carlos Rodon situation. It's just like it's sad and you don't understand what's going on and you feel bad, and then you're left to blame the decision makers, and the decision makers continually putting so many players in bad positions. Luis Severino, though, chief among them. One scout told Eric Boland that he was baffled by how the team only viewed Severino's main issue as his first inning struggles, which obviously exist. They are a problem, but he has a 4.5 ERA in the second, an 8.53 ERA in the third, a 4.76 ERA in the fourth, a 7.6 ERA in the fifth. So in theory, if you were going to bring in Luis Severino to be a bulk reliever for you in any instance, it would have to be you up a shitload of runs, which is the second choice. And the first choice is you down a shitload of runs, because at that point, it doesn't matter. You're getting the work in, you're saving the bullpen, whatever you're doing. At this point, that's probably his role. I understand they needed to get some sort of length out of their pitching staff, but they had a day off today, so they could have extended themselves a little bit in the sake of grabbing a win. You could have went one more inning with Hamilton. Bringing in Severino at that point at a tie game to face the heart of the order when starting somebody in not starting somebody in the game and then bringing them in for the second inning is not a solution in any world, unless it's another reliever where you're just trying to mix it up. Luis Severino switching the inning he's coming in to pitch for a lengthy amount of time is obviously not going to change anything with his approach, especially because his chief struggle is the first group of batters that he's facing. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on.
His chief struggle is facing major league hitters, which is a bummer because it's kind of what he has to do.
It's kind of his job. But again, it's more to me, it's more egregious in the decision making for the Yankees. They had how long? His last start was 5 days ago. It was an absolute disaster. They said everything was on the table. Everything was on the table. Everything.
Right there on the table, right in front of you.
Right in front of you.
And we're coming off a start where it's, my favorite extra from The Dark Knight, the guy who goes, "This is worse than ever." That is what Luis Severino was last week against the Astros. Continue.
And they sat there and they told us that they were exploring everything. They were obviously talking to him because he had been open to a number of changes and whatnot. And they ended up for 5 days, deliberating, or maybe not deliberating. I guess maybe that would be the safer decision, or that would be the safer assumption here, that he would come in after one person pitched one inning. And that was how they decided to solve this. And I don't know how.
Maybe they showed him a calendar again. Remember when they showed him a calendar last year to explain what 60 days was? Like maybe they showed him a list of the numbers 1 through 9, and he was like, "So Luis, like usually you pitch in 1. Today you're pitching in 2." Like, and then he ripped it up again.
You're like, on what planet is it a bad idea? And I've talked about this for a while because I like doing weird pitching stuff, especially in the postseason when you have your hands tied in some games, when maybe a starter completely screws up and can only go 2 innings and then your bullpen's taxed. What would have been wrong with the Yankees working their way backwards? Ian Hamilton, who else even pitched last night? Because I turned it off after I turned it off and then I turned it back on. But I don't even know who else pitched. Just go Ian Hamilton for 1 or 2 and then go with the next reliever that you would have gone with after Severino in any event, and then go with the next reliever that you would have gone on, after that if somebody else were to screw up, or you would have had to change for the sake of matchups, and then go Severino to close, the last 3 or 4 innings of the game.
I would do that, but keep your closer behind him. Go.
Burn the bullpen.
Yeah, they ultimately used Middleton after Severino. He was fine. They used Wandy Peralta. He was great. They used Albert Abreu. He was a gas can.
Yeah.
And then they used Nick Ramirez, who was also a gas can. So
why can't you go Hamilton and Abreu for the first 4 innings of the game?
Or you could have, you don't have Michael King, right? But you could do Hamilton for 2, Wandy for an inning and 2/3, which you ultimately threw, Middleton for 2. Then all of a sudden you're into the 6th. Then you can use Severino for a couple, and Clay Holmes is not pitched for 5 days. You can use Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes, by the way, the game was important enough yesterday that they're putting Hamilton in the first inning and they're messing around with everybody, but not important enough to bring Clay Holmes in a 5-2 game to get some work ahead of an off day. We got to bring Albert Abreu and Nick Ramirez in at the end of this game. And I mean, we could do another 35 minutes on Severino, but when did you turn that game off yesterday, right? When Severino is leaving the game, you're like, all right, I'm good. And when did you turn it back on? Because you want to see a dead body when they have the bases loaded and no outs in the 7th. That's when you turn it back on. I know every fan thinks that their team is the worst team in baseball with runners in scoring position, but it's legit insane that they loaded the bases. They loaded the bases with no outs in the first game of this series, no runs. They loaded the bases 3 times in the first game of this series and got 1 run. The second time was with a couple outs, so forgivable. But then they load the bases with no outs again yesterday, and you're kind of saying to yourself, like, well, they're not actually going to do this again, because teams don't actually do this 4 times in a series. The 2023 New York Yankees do, and they were gone in a matter of seconds. You turn it on with the bases loaded and no outs, you got a looking strikeout and an easy tailor-made ground ball double play in a hilarious display of ineptitude. And as Talking Jake pointed out last night, the Yankees struck out 14 times looking in this series with runners in scoring position. That feels like a thing where you're like, man, that's a bad month.
Yeah.
14 strikeouts looking with runners in scoring position. That is a rough July. Nope. Series against the most dysfunctional team in baseball. Not called the New York Yankees. Because right now that's us. But other than us, it's the White Sox, who wouldn't put Keenan Middleton's name on the scoreboard after he called out the organization. Ozzie Guillen said the manager needs to go on the pregame show before this series. Again, Tim Anderson got slapped in the head. Again, Tim Anderson just got decked by Jose Ramirez, but somehow played games 1 and 3 of this series while appealing his suspension. The White Sox are getting giggled at from all corners of the baseball landscape, and they're the ones who just pummeled you.
Yeah, that was my issue with this whole thing, because trash talk never works out for the Yankees. It hasn't worked. I don't remember the last time it turned out in our favor, but Keenan Middleton saying that on Sunday, not that I'm in opposition of it, because he should speak his mind, especially when he's coming from a toxic situation and gets to land ostensibly in a setting where he thinks he can win, but he can't. So you will not be winning this year. Sorry, Keenan. But he says that before the series against the White Sox. And of course, there's some sort of cosmic energy that prepares the White Sox for this moment. And they say, oh, you know what? You're going to come into town. You're going to talk shit on us. The manager, right before the first game of this series for the White Sox, essentially blasted the team and was like, the guys that we had here were not leaders, and, essentially put us in a bad spot. And now here we are. And not only that, Ozzie Guillen on NBC Sports Chicago called him out for saying that those players were not leaders, because he said that the manager should have detected in spring training who his leaders were and set the tone with them. So you have the manager blaming the players, and then you have the media blaming the manager for how bad this team. They're 47-68 or whatever.
Something like that.
They have been running. The last 2 years have been the most disappointing team in baseball. Talent-wise, they're in a very weak division. They should not be performing. They should not be underperforming to this magnitude, and they have been absolutely awful. So then you throw in the Tim Anderson knockout. They were the laughingstock of the internet for the weekend, even though they ended up beating the Guardians those 2 games. But it is what it is. Either way, the Yankees had this on a silver platter with all of this toxic stuff coming in. And they laid down, they let it happen. Even in the one win that they had, they struck out 17 times.
Yeah.
Which, embarrassing for the White Sox. You would think that the Yankees could actually capitalize on that. The White Sox are 0-11 this year when striking out at least 14 batters. One of the craziest stats, that is a Yankee stat that you will see, because if you follow Katie Sharp on Twitter, there is a new doomsday stat for the Yankees every single day. And even in the win, the Yankees struck out 17 times and made themselves look stupid. All around embarrassing. I don't know I didn't even watch. What happened in the post game? Did anyone watch the post game? I didn't watch the post game.
Of that, I mean, they don't.
No, last night. What was there an explanation for Severino?
Not really. I mean, again, he said he was willing to try anything, up to and including a minor league assignment. You would hope. They talked to him Apparently, Gary Phillips talked to Matt Blake and company like a week ago and said, what would have to happen for you to consider that? And he was like, we're going to have to consider it pretty soon. And I think these last 2 starts have only made that consideration. I don't think, I'm going to be wrong, but I don't think you could put Luis Severino in a Yankee uniform again, which is a really sad way for this career to end.
I would agree.
He is not being re-signed in free agency here. The Yankees cannot give him a qualifying offer. You can't risk him taking 1 year, $17.8 million or whatever it is.
We'll take that.
So he'll take that because he was supposed to build up his value this year, and he did the exact opposite. You couldn't imagine a worse way to change your value in 1 year. I don't think you can't see him in this uniform ever again until Old Timers Day, when he deserves an ovation for what he's done for this franchise, but is maybe not he'll get it. I mean, it'll all be forgotten. This season will be forgotten. This season will be buried in 2 weeks when we're watching the Astros and Braves play in the World Series and being like, man, the Yankees are not in this echelon. They're not even in this. They're not in this sport. This is 2 different teams playing a different sport. The other teams have finally closed the gap on us. We finish 18th in Major League Baseball. I guess he probably will be on the mound in 5 days, though. But I think you just have to take him out of baseball. I think you need to send him to Scranton. And now that he's saying he's willing to try anything, he's calling himself the worst pitcher in baseball. Pitching requires confidence. So on top of all of this, he's probably injured. But on top of all of this, he's as not confident as he's ever been. So send him to the minor leagues, and it might not fix him. It'll just wind down the clock until he can leave and sign elsewhere for $8 million next season. Yeah,
and you have Randy Vasquez, who came up a couple of times and was good.
And you have a non-playoff team. Yeah. You have a team that's going to finish under 500. So just get the embarrassing guy out of here.
Get the embarrassing guy out of here. If you can contend for a playoff spot, great. There, you cannot get worse than Luis Severino at this moment, and that is not an insult to him. It is statistics based. However many starts that I think it was 7 out of his last 9 starts or something like that. He's literally, that's why WAR is a funny stat to me. He literally lost the Yankees 7 out of his last 9 starts. So I don't know how the WAR is only -2. Because even then, in the logic, if he gave them a chance to win in the other 2 games, it would still be -5. So
that would be a more fun way to use WAR would definitely be just like take 1 win away from a pitcher every time he's god awful. So that at the end of the year, you're like, wow, the league leaders in WAR, like Jordan Lyles is a -15. Like, oops.
Either way, though, you have these young players. You already started Randy Vasquez's clock. Just keep him here. You need to prepare for 2024. And if you weren't going to make any deadline acquisitions, which we'll talk about in a minute because there was an egregious miss at this point, if the Yankees believed in this unit and didn't want to spend too much and wanted to add a veteran who could provide some value down the stretch, then you need to utilize the prospects and service time be damned. Who gives a shit about it at this point? You already wasted enough money. You already wasted enough of everybody's time. If you're going to lose a half a year or a year of a player, it doesn't matter. If they're going to help you get over the hump and close this gap in the wild card race, and it'll be worth every penny. It's not going to happen, but at this rate, you have to put a better product on the field because you have players playing out of position everywhere. You have pitchers who can't be taking the mound and be responsible for giving the offense any breathing room to stay in a game. It's happened far too many times, and this series has to be the one where the Yankees, I mean, they've had to look in the mirror for a while now because they haven't won a series since June 23rd. But you lose a series to the White Sox like this after all that they've been through. Now it's time to start making decisions that you were hesitant about before for whatever reason you might have been hesitant for. We still don't know why, but now things have to change for the better. And at the very least, it's going to prepare you it's going to give a lot of young guys a head start for next year. And that has value in it, regardless if you make the playoffs this year or not.
Well, before we move on to the people who are safe, the people who will be back next year, I do think it's worth noting that Davey Garcia news has ramped up in the last 20 minutes. Eric Kratz went on foul territory to say they did him wrong. Quote, he caught his debut. Remember, he was the catcher during the 2020 season when Garcia came up. They had a special bond at the alternate site. He says the Yankees didn't have the right coaching available to him. And I agree. No one is arguing that Davey Garcia was good at all since 2020. Yeah. He was not. He was dreadful. But did you know that before 2021, they changed his motion to try to get more rotation in his delivery, and it immediately threw him off, and he started being very hittable. And then they tried to go back and put the toothpaste back in the tube and get him back to his old self. And he gave a bunch of quotes that was like, I'm close to what I was doing before, but he obviously wasn't because he was still walking people and putting up 6.8 ERAs at AAA. Anyway, the White Sox just picked him up. So he did not clear waivers. He's going to Chicago, the only organization as dysfunctional as the New York Yankees. And that is sad because his time in baseball is teetering, much like Luis Severino's, although Severino's going to get paid this offseason something. I mean, he was probably going to get $40 million. He now may get 1 year, 6 or something. Davey Garcia's future even more in doubt because the Yankees, who have been pretty good at they've been good at creating bullpen pieces. They've been good at streamlining people's deliveries. They've been good at printing pitchers the last couple of years, but they messed up Davey Garcia. They did, and now he's gone.
Messed up Davey Garcia, messed up Sonny Gray. It's the
But Sonny Gray was Larry Rothschild. So like you really do think like, all right, well, that old regime that used to fuck with pitchers is gone. But Matt Blake and company tried to get Davey Garcia to be something he wasn't. That is, I don't have a lot of criticisms for Matt Blake. I think he's very good at his job. He's trying to print relievers and he's doing it. Yeah. He's maximizing velocity in the minors. He's creating guys like Chase Hamp. The scouting of minor league pitchers is actually very good. Mm-hmm. But sometimes when you have like a little imperfect nugget like Davey Garcia, who's like, hey, he's 5'8". He doesn't throw like any other pitcher. He gets a lot of velocity out of this weird motion that works for him. Maybe we don't have to change that. Maybe we don't have to be like, couldn't you be more like X, Y, Z? Couldn't you like add a cutter? Why isn't your changeup in the top percentile? Could you bump your changeup 20 RPMs? Like, we don't really have to be fucking with Davey Garcia's motion as much as we did. And also add in the confidence diminisher of you're going to start a playoff game. Oh, you gave up a home run to Randy Arozarena. Now you're going to leave a playoff game. Goodbye. Like that mental warfare plus, literally taking his motion and saying, we were going to change what works for you. Coaching is coaching, but there's coaching, there's tweaking, and then there's like, hey, let's break this down and change it entirely. Certainly seems like the Yankees messed this man up. And the regime that we've largely trusted to get this one thing right kind of seems like they got it wrong. Good luck in Chicago. Not where I wanted to see you land. That's another bad org.
No, but good for him. Get somewhere else, get back on track, figure it out. I don't know. The Yankees do this with they've done it with Miguel Andujar. They've done it with Clint Frazier. They've done it with Justice Sheffield. They decided to not include him in a Manny Machado package and then just decided to trade him 6 months later for James Paxton. And the decisions here, they let all these assets wither away. Like if you let Davey Garcia for 3 years pitch for you with a 6+ ERA and had him take up a 40-man roster spot and you thought that was a good decision, like after year one, a year and a half into that, they never cut the cord. Like I'll even argue they did this with Mike Tauchman, in my opinion. 2019 Mike Tauchman, they got Mike Tauchman for absolutely nothing. Mike Tauchman lit it up in 2019. Then he got injured, and that derailed the whole postseason run that we'll look back on. But then you're not going to trade him that offseason when you have an excess of outfielders, when his value's at a high, and then he craters in 2020, and then he starts off the season poorly in 2021, and then you just trade him for a reliever. This organization watches so many assets depreciate. They screw with so many young talents. They screwed with Miguel Andujar trying to move him to the corner outfield, and then refused to trade him for whatever reason when Gio Urshela took over the third base job. Clint Frazier was once upon a time someone we thought could be a contributor. They kept jerking him back and forth between AAA for whatever reason. I know he was a little bit problematic in some instances, and then he had the concussion issues, but definitely didn't help his confidence handling him the manner in which they did. And then all combined with all of that, they took way too long to part with all of these players. Miguel Andujar was here until last year when he got traded to the Pirates after he made 2 public snafus about how the Yankees were handling him and throwing him at AAA and not giving a proper opportunity at the MLB level. Clint Frazier was utilized when he was A, injured, B, was incapable of playing defense, and C, wasn't hitting the ball, and then was eventually non-tendered probably a year too late. So I hope that all of these guys are able to do something elsewhere. I know Frazier had a little bit of Frazier with the White Sox too. Frazier had a little bit of success there for a minute. He got called up earlier this year. And Duhar is tearing it up with AAA Indianapolis or whatever. He's absolutely destroying the cover.
I was just gonna say, when's the last time you checked in on that? Because he's hitting 362 with 1,005 OPS.
Hilarious.
15 bombs and 79 RBI. But of course, with the big league Pirates, he's hitting 161 this year. So he's just a AAA Hall of Famer, I think. But that's fun, I guess.
Yeah, it's asset mismanagement by this team. It's an unwillingness to act with, I would say, a form of haste that is at least strategic. Like if somebody knew at that point they screwed up Davey Garcia when you saw his 2021 numbers. And then if you see the way 2022 started, you're like, oh shit, like we might be at the point of no return right now. So I don't. It's more of the same, and it's more frustrating, and that probably brings us into Cashman.
Yeah. Well, before we go to Cash, let's do one more read. If you have not yet signed up for Caesar Sportsbook, new customers get their first bet insured up to $1,250. That's $1,250 for the real gamblers out there, not $12.50 like your boy, by using our code YGYFULL while signing up. That's YGYFULL. Not only will your first bet be completely insured, but you'll also be directly supporting the podcast. Isn't that amazing? I don't know why I read it verbatim and it says, oops. Yeah, that's a mistake. So if you haven't already joined the Caesar Sportsbook community, now is the perfect time to make your move. Just remember to enter our code YGYFULL during sign up and place that first bet. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode description for the full terms of the offer. I'm Ron Burgundy. Oops. All right, let's talk about Brian Cashman, who apparently could not be safer, according to all the news that dropped yesterday and today. Man, oh man, is he ever confidently safe as his team gets taken to the woodshed every single night by the 2-84 Chicago White Sox.
I mean, yeah, after you read all this stuff, I was just looking through Twitter before because Cashman's trending every day. It's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, X knows what I want. It's just putting Brian Cashman on my sidebar.
Yeah. And you had that report from Bob Klapisch, which we'll, I think, elaborate on in a minute, but you could tell the guy knows he's not in trouble whatsoever because his quote after the trade deadline was, hopefully we got a little better with the Middleton acquisition, and hopefully we can get better from within, and hopefully we didn't get worse by making a bad decision. So if you're going to the podium to talk to the media after the trade deadline, and that's what you have to say, yeah, anything can really happen, guys. So you never really know. It's life. Life's kind of a complicated thing. Good things can happen. Bad things can happen. I could be dumb. I could be smart. I could make a mistake. I could make a really good move. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like a guy with a plan who thought his team was in it to win it, but was wildly underperforming and badly needed help on various areas of the roster. Hasn't had a left fielder in 2 years. Offense averaged 3 runs without their best player. Bullpen started showing cracks once it was overworked. Rotation completely fell apart with injuries and a couple of regressions there. So, sounds like a guy who knows he's not losing his job. And now I guess we have confirmation of that from this report, which says there's no chance he loses his job for 2024. Aaron Boone indeed could be on the hot seat. Again, I don't know what that's going to solve. Good luck. Have fun. We can have that conversation all day. But I think that audio clip from Klapisch on the Michael Kay show, that was alarming to me. That really made me feel bad.
I'm just so shocked that Brian Cashman still wants to do this. He doesn't want it. He wants to get whipped by everybody year in, year out. But I guess he's not, because I guess he doesn't read this. He doesn't read Twitter. He just reads people like Andy Martino today who wrote, Brian Cashman's obviously a future Hall of Famer and he's not going anywhere. And he's just like, yeah, I am a future Hall of Famer. Do you have to refer to him as such every time you write about him? He probably is going to the Hall of Fame. He built this ridiculous streak of Yankee teams that never finish under 500. And that's great. That's, a lot of people there are a lot of compilers in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Right? There are a lot of people in the Hall of Fame where you're like, was Harold Baines really that good? Oh, he did have 2,800 hits, though. That's a lot. That's Brian Cashman. He went to the World Series and won it once, lost it a couple times with somebody else's core, and never finished under 500 until this year. Yeah, I guess he's got to go into the Hall of Fame, but if he's in the Hall of Fame, Dave Dombrowski should be. My God. I don't know. He's a Hall of Famer, and I guess and I will be referred to as such, he says when he emails Andy Martino, I'm sure. But why does he want to do this? Why doesn't he want to graduate to an emeritus role? Hi, I'm Brian Cashman, a Hall of Fame GM. I'm going to start the clock on my, induction speech by elevating myself to superior ultra GM, but actually handing over the day-to-day operations to some 38-year-old McKinsey, got ex-Orioles efficiency monster. Like, why doesn't he want to do that? I don't understand. And also Aaron Boone, apparently on the hot seat. Clappish says he'll be out if they finish 4th or 5th. Well, good luck with that, because they're finishing 4th or 5th. So I don't know why Bob Clappish holding out hope that they make a miracle run to 2nd. But who's he getting replaced with? Someone with autonomy? Doubt it. A lot of people in the mentions yesterday were like, Boone should not have brought Severino in. You think that was Aaron Boone's idea? Very cute. And then there's also sort of this rumor floating around that maybe the analytics team is going to get the blame for this, which valid. I don't think the Yankees analytics team is very good because they made a lot of very popular decisions. Oh, you guys came up with the genius idea of getting Joey Gallo, like the analytics darling of the entire community of amateur statisticians that live on twitter.com. Like anybody with the ability to see exit velocity go up, strikeout go up is like Joey Gallo's an analytics, god. But he couldn't handle the mental side of New York. You gave up a lot of 40-man chum for Joey Gallo and it didn't work. Like the analytics department, you don't need an analytics department to recommend that. You just need to scroll Twitter and read through somebody's amateur math. And clearly they don't have the ability to discern, they don't find the missing piece. They just find a lot of incorrect pieces. The injury stuff doesn't seem to factor in. Roberto Rosario, the analytics team is actually helmed by Michael Fishman, who's been there forever. But every time you see him on TV, he doesn't seem to be able to, properly state his case. He's just like a guy mumbling. So if he's gone, great. I think the Yankees could certainly upgrade that department. Analytics aren't going anywhere. They're the way of the future. The Yankees just don't do them very well. But Brian Cashman has overseen a lot of stuff that hasn't worked over the years, and he would be overseeing that. So I don't know. In terms of scapegoats, I think that's a better one than firing Aaron Boone. But why not? Why not all three things?
Yeah, I mean, when a president's cabinet shits the bed, they don't kick the Secretary of State out of office and leave the fucking president there. Like Brian Cashman has oversaw. His job is to oversee everything that runs the Yankees, and whether there is a problem here or a problem there, that's his responsibility to clean up. The scary part of the Clappish report was that he was saying. At one point, he said, like, Howe didn't even really want the Yankees in that audio clip, said that he's very passive. He doesn't like firing people, and that this Yankees team is Brian Cashman's team, whereas in yesteryear, it was George Steinbrenner's team and everything went through him. So it doesn't seem like a lot of or any of the baseball decisions go through Hal Steinbrenner unless it's a midnight call for to up Aaron Judge's offer for $60 million. Because he's the one who wields the checkbook. So that's the only thing that he's probably on call for in an offseason when there could potentially be a lot of turmoil and he's responsible for doling out the money. But yeah, if he's going to sit there and Cashman has, ironclad job security for whatever reason, and Hal's fine with, quote, the product as long as they finish above 500 and, or if they sneak into the postseason, which they're probably not going to do at this rate because again they did not get better. Doesn't sound like Hal Steinbrenner is a baseball guy. That's kind of my opinion, because if you're a baseball guy and you're following the team and then your GM steps to the media and says what he says after the trade deadline and does what he does after the trade deadline, then you would have some sort of inclination to say, hey, Brian, you have time to come upstairs for a second? Just watched what happened in the media room, and what the fuck are you doing? Because none of this makes sense if you watch baseball. Every Yankee fan is in alignment with everything that's happening right now. There is nobody who's who is holding out. Well, I think there's like 13-year-olds who are like holding out hope. Be like, yeah, we could make a run. At the end of the season, Giancarlo Stanton can get hot. It'll be great.
There are definitely 13-year-olds on Twitter who are like, here's why you don't count the Yankees out. Like, here's why you don't count the Yankees out yet. They've been historically unlucky with their hard contact rates. Like, what is it? August 10th? Not bad luck anymore. Just the way that they're constructed. They're just not good.
Correct. And yeah, the fact that Cashman just got a 4-year extension before this season. Yankees don't like to break contracts. So that's why it's shocking to hear that Boone, because they could just keep Boone for one more year.
Yeah.
And then it's a team option. And then they could just say, we've mutually agreed to part ways. And then they do their little PR dance and do their salute. We didn't fire anybody. We don't have a toxic environment. They like to let all of this, it goes in the philosophy with everything dwindling down. They let everything dwindle down to the last second, and then it makes it seem like, they're not at fault for whatever had deteriorated or whatever took a wrong turn. But yeah, this is concerning because you had Michael Kay on the show the day before. Michael Kay, voice of the Yankees, said the problem with the Yankees is the roster, because I think a caller phoned in and was like, you got to be kidding me with Aaron Boone. This guy can't tell his fucking ass from his elbow. And it's that classic. And it makes sense because Aaron Boone doesn't really. And you have the pinch hit situation last night with Volpe when Oswaldo was up.
What was that?
Yeah. He's not a good manager, but he's also not holding this. He is not responsible for 12 losses this season that should have the Yankees, theoretically 10 to 12 wins better. He's probably responsible for 4 or 5. And then either way, it doesn't matter because the amount of games that this team has lost by simply not hitting baseballs or making dumb defensive plays or making dumb base running decisions like they did in the first inning last night when they decided to send Jake Bauers to third on an Aaron Judge single when the ball was already in Luis Roberts' glove. Like,
that was an awesome way to start things off, by the way.
Great way to kill the momentum.
Huge game. Let's just go first to third, make the first out at third, and then in the second inning, make the third out at second on an Isaiah Kiner-Falefa steal. Dressed for success. You guys are great.
So Michael, anyway, what I was saying, Michael Kay, so someone called criticizing Boone and he said, Boone's not the problem. The problem is the roster construction and the injuries. And those go hand in hand because Brian Cashman has acquired countless players who are injury prone or who have injury histories and decided that that's a worthwhile gamble to take over and over and over again, and has lopsided personnel. There are people who can't play certain positions. We haven't had a backup first baseman. We have a backup first baseman dating back to last year. I don't even the DJ
yesterday. Yeah, it was Billy McKinney yesterday. Yeah. That was
Jake
great.
They finally got Jake Bauers in at first base after Anthony Rizzo went on the IL. That's his natural position, not the outfield. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa has been playing the outfield, which is not now he's playing all over the infield, and he looks great filling in at third base. That's the way he's got to be utilized. Meanwhile, last year they utilized him at shortstop for the entire season when he's not a shortstop. You have Gleyber Torres playing just an underwhelming second base. There's no desire to up his defensive IQ or just fine tune his glove, which obviously has potential because he makes incredible web gems. And then he made 2 of them last night, 2 amazing plays, and then he tries to ole a fucking squibbler and it goes into the outfield and scores a run. So Michael Kay saying that the roster problem, the problem with this team is roster construction, which implies that Brian Cashman is at fault, I think is probably where we should be trusting, that type of analysis and that sort of opinion, and not be blaming Aaron Boone for this team simply not getting the job done.
I don't have a full-throated defense of Aaron Boone, which is not good because I should have that after so many years of managing. But it's obviously 1, roster construction, 2, players on the field, 3, Aaron Boone. Mm-hmm. And honestly, organization as a whole, maybe before Aaron Boone, enablers from the top down, Hal Steinbrenner, just a misguided ethos, not in the upper echelon of major league organizations anymore. They're just not. It's an Aaron Judge team. It's Aaron Judge. If Aaron Judge is off the rails or if Aaron Judge is injured, there's nobody here. There's nothing and nobody to pick up his slack, which leads us right into Everson Pereira, who you want to make the end of this season at least a little bit tolerable. Call him up. He's hitting 340 at AAA with power. Hit an opposite field 3-run homer yesterday that would have looked great into the porch. But guess what? August 18th is the date where the Yankees can call him up and he does not accrue the full year of service time that strips his rookie status for next year, they ain't calling him up before then. But all it does is expose more lies from the front office, because this team's in it to win it at the deadline, but we didn't get anybody. But the prospects are coming, but the prospects aren't coming until August 18th. So we just sort of tell you that they came, and isn't that nice? We inserted them into everything, and now they've changed the makeup of the lineup. Well, that's fantastic. You're already 5.5 out, if not further than that, in another week. A week where they play the Marlins and Braves. Best of luck to you. Tip of the cap. So they're going to call Everson Pereira up as a false hustle move, get his feet wet for 2024. He'll make it. I'll watch his debut. I want to see what that looks like. But come on, guys. You're not a fully operational Death Star. You're not in it to win it. You're not plugging your holes. You're just calling up. You're manipulating service time as a $290 million enterprise that could not get under the Steve Cohen tax at this underwhelming trade deadline. It's going to be paying through the nose for this poor production. And then you're going to, put some frosting on that terrible cake on August 18th when you can, while incurring the least amount possible penalty. You're going to put Everson Pereira on this team. I'm excited to watch him, and I will watch, but there'll be no hope at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you're not a fully operational Death Star if you're worried about service time. You're not. That's what smaller market teams do to save money.
You're a partially operational death boat.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, with how bad the outfield production has been, again, it's this kind of a situation like with Luis Severino. You can't get much worse. So what's the harm in trying somebody who is on fire? Human element. We'll talk about it with this front office every episode, probably. Everson Pereira tearing the cover off the ball. Probably should just fucking call him up while he's doing that instead of him eventually cooling off, because hot streaks don't last forever. And then you call him up when he's slumping a little bit, and then he starts facing major league pitching, and then he's a little bit lost. Either way, they make the wrong decision. They kind of always will. But yeah, finger not on the pulse. I think pretty good example of that is what happened at this trade deadline. Michael Lorenzen. Hindsight's 2020. We didn't know if Lorenzen was a surefire asset. He had only been a starter. This was his second year as a starter, and he was partially injured last year. So you didn't really get the full sample size from him. But I don't know, man. Dave Dombrowski goes out. He trades a top 5 prospect for the guy, and he's thrown 17 innings of 2-run ball and threw a no-hitter last night against the Nationals. First start with them was 8 innings, 2 runs. I think he gave up like 6 hits and a walk over 8 innings. I don't know. Brian Cashman's telling me that the team was in it to win it. It very much needed starting pitching. This team has a surplus of prospects at a multitude of positions, whether it's middle infield, whether it's starting pitching, whether it's outfield. You're telling me there wasn't one guy in like your top 10 you could have convinced the Tigers to trade for Michael Lorenzen if you were convinced that you could get better. And then, I don't know, if you look ahead 3 weeks, you could say, you know what, if he has a good stretch with us, we can give him the qualifying offer and then he'll decline it. And then we could get a draft pick out of it, or he'll accept it and we'll just have a pretty good starting pitcher at a decent price for 2024. And we'll have less heavy lifting to do in the offseason. So it's like, and he's a good story too. Reliever, outfielder, now a starter, and is having really good first 2 seasons in that role. So again, it's like, it's these opportunities where there's just I feel like there's not even a thought. It's like they look at a name on a piece of paper and they're like, nope, next. Nope, I don't like that. Let's see, like, read into a single situation, have any sort of insight that goes beyond just analyzing numbers. I don't know. I feel like that's a miss. I feel like that's an easy thing they could have done.
Yeah, I mean, there's a silly way to have this conversation, which is like, oh, a guy just threw a no-hitter. Like, the Yankees should have gotten him. Of course. But Michael Lorenzen, all-star starter, but back end of that tier. Like, lower tier all-star. Even at the all-star break this year, he was like, I don't know why I made the team. I should not have. Very funny. He had like a 4.28 ERA. Solid innings-eating starter for the Tigers with high upside. Occasionally, he dominates. Occasionally, he homers. He's a great hitter. He like turned himself into an offensive weapon with the Reds, and when he was with the Angels, he was kind of flirting with doing both or whatever. Just an interesting personality, a winner, somebody who lost his father pretty tragically and like had a huge game for Cincinnati around the anniversary of that death and threw a no-hitter yesterday, also around the anniversary of that death, which sort of goes beyond the baseball field. So not saying, hey, some guy just threw a no-hitter just after the trade deadline. Why didn't we trade for that guy? But low-cost all-star, the Phillies sent a middle infield prospect who ranked, I think, 18th on Philly's top 30 prospects list, immediately slotted in with Tigers as their 6th prospect. So
it said 5. I kept trying to read because I thought it was that too. It said he was top 5 in the Phillies.
All right. Well, there you go. You know, it's a mid-tier prospect, but it's only one.
Yeah.
So it's like
that's what I'm saying.
Warren. Yeah. Will Warren or, you know, somebody in the middle of the Yankees, even Trey Sweeney for Michael Lorenzen. Like the name is kind of, you might cringe at first, but you know, you're trying to make a playoff push, and the Phillies from last season know that all you have to do is get in, because then you can make a run. Dave Dombrowski is saying, I like the person, I like the makeup, I also like the player. This one might come back to bite me, but you know what? At the end of the day, I can replenish what I lost. It's just one guy. And if the Tigers get something they like out of me, then they might even go, hey, I like dealing with that guy. I think I'll deal with that guy again in the future. Brian Cashman does not want to lose a trade, refuses to lose a small trade, refuses to take the risk, refuses to say, I like the person, I kind of like the player, but I also like just staying put. There's a chance we could get better, but man, there's a chance we could not get better. And then I'll look like a fool having given up exactly one prospect. So I won't do that. And then you know what? Dave Dombrowski bought himself that goodwill, right? He bought himself that goodwill with the Tigers by flipping them a piece that they really liked. Brian Cashman has people screw the Yankees and the Yankees tax in these trade talks all the time, because who likes dealing with Brian Cashman? He gives the Rangers in the Joey Gallo trade. He's like, here's a bunch of guys we weren't going to protect anyway. Hope you guys can make something of them. And they do. Zeke Duran is good. Frankie Montas trade. He waits for Frankie Montas' shoulder to get hurt so that he's like, Oswald Peraza, sorry, he's off the table. Would you like an assortment of pitching prospects? And the A's are like, fine, but we're sending you an injured guy. You know that, right? And Cashman's like, fine with me. He goes and gets an injured guy. When has he ever bought himself goodwill by losing a trade? He devalues the assets he has by sitting on them. Once he hoards them, he doesn't promote them. And he never takes a chance on a guy like Lorenzen, on a mid-tier target that could boom or bust. That's all we're saying.
Yeah. Hi, Yu Lee, 20-year-old middle infielder. MLB Pipeline had him at number 5 for Phillies. Baseball America had him at number 8. I'm more inclined to believe Baseball America. I think that's a better evaluation system. And then if you want to just, look at what the Yankees would have had to offer in their top 10 for, again, a starting pitcher who would have been valuable in any really scenario for what they were doing, you have, Yoendrys Gomez. I don't know if they want to trade like Will Warren, but or Trey Sweeney. Are you serious about I don't know. Again, you have to give to get, especially at a deadline that had very little to offer, and the sellers, the sellers were a little bit more in control, I would say, this time around, because of the limited field and a lot of teams determining that they would be contending for, or at least pushing for, a playoff spot. But again, yeah, if you're going for it, if you believe in the roster, there can't be these carefully constructed trade packages to minimize the most risk possible because you're afraid of looking like an idiot. You look more like an idiot when you do nothing, or when you trade for players who can't play for you, which is what the Yankees have been doing for the last 3 years.
Well, we're in it to win it. We'll be in it to win it for the rest of the season. Can't wait to watch the remainder of this beautiful campaign. And thanks for joining us again today on the stream or on the audio feed, wherever you are, wherever you did join us. We appreciate you hanging out, because it's tough. It's event session. It's therapy session every time. I opened up this episode by screaming. I have no voice. I do another podcast in a half hour. I can't talk. I need to do a tea bath. I need to gargle hot honey water. But it's been fun. We're here every Monday and Thursday, 2:00 Eastern, and again on all podcast platforms. If you missed the stream, I'm sure we'll have nothing nice to talk about on Monday after the Yankees get done in Miami. It's great to have an off day, though. It really does. Feels pretty good to have a day off here. No baseball tonight. I'm going to enjoy a burger tonight. What a wonderful thing that is, to live in this beautiful country and be able to eat a hamburger. Never take that for granted, because you could be sitting at home watching the New York Yankees. My name is Adam Weinrib. I'm on Twitter. I'm on X at Adam Weinrib. I wish I wasn't, but I am. Thomas Carinante, where can the people find you?
Hit me up at Tommy's_takes. Reach out to both of us. Official Yanks Go Yard Twitter account at Yanks Go Yard FS. Pretty good time there. You never know who's responding. That's why we love it. Head on over to yanksgoyard.com. All the content there for you. You guys have been doing a great job reading. We had a lot of good stuff up there. We're reacting to everything in real time. We're just as frustrated as you are. And if we could channel that and have the community come together, then we're doing our jobs. And we're glad that you guys are enjoying it. So thank you once again. Enjoy the off day. Please do something productive, something creative, something fulfilling. And then enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you again Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern live right here. See ya, everybody.
Yeah, paint a picture. Write a song.
Yeah.
Invent a sandwich. Don't think about the New York Yankees. We'll see you on Monday, everybody.